Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to researchroadshow.com. Today is June 11th, 2023, and tonight I'm going to talk about the situation that we find ourselves in many of our larger cities where there's a large hospital system that, and you can guess at some of the names, some of the big clinics. There is a worrisome situation going on in many of these hospitals, and many of our subscribers have written to me or to one of the co-founders of the channel and told them of their story. Most of the subscribers who've written in are over the age of 60. You reach a certain age, you start to have a few cricks and cracks and whatnot, externally and internally, and you're obligated to find remedy. And it used to be that you just go to your local country doctor, right? But nowadays there are very, very few country doctors, if any, and slowly those that are remaining are being forced into the city, into one of these big HMO or whatever the new acronym is for an HMO, into a new organization, typically a matrixed organization, double underline on the word matrix. We are in a difficult situation, and it's somewhat shown by the fact that most of my views have come from, over the past 40 shows that I've done. The larger number of views have come from the 4 episodes I did on the hospital system and the legal system. People are interested in this material. But I'm going to start off tonight talking about a situation that's near and dear to my heart, and that is the case of young people, minors under the age of 17 in most states, minors that have to undergo a medical procedure, and at some point the parents decide to take the child out of that system and find another doctor or another hospital that will accept their child as a patient, even though the situation is very delicate and the jumping ship from one hospital going to another is not the ideal for any child in that condition. And yet the parents feel that it is mandatory. Now, why am I talking about this? Because there was a famous case that happened in Boston in 2013, and the young lady in question looked exactly like my daughter at the time. And I felt the parents' pain. And so I decided that one day, having the means, I would go after this particular topic, address it, try to gain some attention to it. Good evening to everybody in the chat. Aloha. Buongiorno. Bonjour tutti. Yes, I did take care of that issue you asked me about. I will address it tomorrow night or Tuesday night. Let's get back to the issue of parents who want to take their child out of the hospital system that they're currently in and find resistance from the head of the hospital wing or of the hospital administrators. Now I'm going to put up this slide. This is from a site called medicalkidnap.com, and I'll read it because I'm not sure everybody, some of you are on a cell phone, and so you might not be able to see the print. Parents routinely denied legal representation in child abuse cases, more likely to have children medically kidnapped by the state. The byline is Ms. Allie Parker of Health Impact News. When a medical doctor bridges the line of physician and law enforcement, which many, if not all, child abuse physicians do, the rights of family are not often violated, but they are blatantly disregarded. The first violation after the accusation is made is the disregard of the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Okay, let me pause and open a parenthesis there. John F. Kennedy once said, "There is no sense in preserving the United States as a nation unless we preserve some of the basic principles that have always gone hand in hand with the United States, that are part of our DNA." And one of these is the presumption of innocence. I can distinctly remember being in the second grade and falsely accusing, without malice, I just falsely accused a classmate of having taken something of mine, and the teacher laid into me. Did you see him take it? Do you have any proof? You have to assume he's innocent unless you have overwhelming proof that he did it. Because laying a false accusation like that, Johnny, is wrong. It's really wrong. Okay? Now, at the time, I had no idea what the law was. The concept of law with a capital L was way beyond me. But I'd heard about right versus wrong. And so the teacher, planted it firmly in my mind and in the mind of many other classmates: innocent until proven guilty. We're getting away from that. We're getting away from that, especially when it comes to child protective services. And I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Okay, let's continue reading. Once a medical doctor makes the diagnosis of child abuse, it is not just a diagnosis, it is actually the accusation of crime. So we're entering formally into criminal procedure. This accusation, stemming from the knowledge, experience, and expertise of a child abuse pediatrician, has now damned a family into guilt until they can prove their innocence. As we have previously reported here at Health Impact News, child abuse pediatricians are making legal accusations based on only medical evidence and not on forensic evidence, which is the kind of evidence non-medical detectives trained in law enforcement have to rely upon to get a conviction for child abuse in a court of law. Subtitle: Has the U.S. become a medical police state? How doctors deny due process to kidnapped children through child protective services. Pediatric child abuse experts are not experts in anything. The Supreme Court is sympathetic to the need for counsel in criminal cases, but often denies legal assistance to civil cases where the termination of parental rights is most often decided. This leaves the burden of finding and retaining counsel, finding and paying experts to review their case and testify, up to the families themselves. The law does not generally recognize the constitutional right to a court-appointed attorney in a civil case, whether they are the plaintiff or the defendant. McMillan Indigent Defense Bill, which was signed into law in Michigan by Governor Snyder, House Bill 4529, back in 2013, only applies to criminal cases. Parental rights to receive counsel in termination of parental rights cases is left to the individual state legislatures or determined by the trial court on a case-by-case basis, which leaves the right to counsel on many states inconsistent. And that is a good example of where monetary interests are impacting the legal stance when you have a wide variation from state to state. Because very often in the states where there is a lot of money invested in the medical industry, let's say state of New York, there are many more incentives to urge, to lobby lawmakers into pushing for a bill that goes completely against every prior conception of parental rights, right? I hope you understand where I'm going with this. The fact that when the law is aligned with right and wrong, more or less, then usually across the states and usually across nations, the laws are similar, right? It is when we get into, whenever you see wide variation between the states, then there's usually money involved, and a lot of money. All right, now let's bring up the next slide. Oh, before I do that, I want to pause here again and go back to innocent until proven guilty and what constitutes child abuse. So I'm going to stop this for a second. Many of our subscribers are over the age of 50, and when you were younger, you probably had mother or father that once in a while would show his or her authority with a little, in my house, they were called spankings, right? Today, a spanking, the kind that my mother would have given me, would be illegal in some states. It would be grounds for Child Protective Services to accuse you of, maybe not as a first offense, but they could use the fact that you spank your child as one indication, one supporting evidence of an abuse situation. Now, the law again is a little bit fuzzy, okay? Because you're open to human interpretation of a law, looking at a case where it's not clear what could have happened inside the house. You have a neighbor who heard something. It was kind of like this, and he saw a kid running out of the house, and the situation is very hard to apply. I mean, it's very objective. It's very subjective. So why am I addressing this first before I get into the hospitals? Because we are, at least up until now, in the United States, we've been a system based, a country based upon the rule of law. That doesn't mean that the laws are all fair. It doesn't mean that the laws are all have majority support from the residents of that given state. But we are based on a rule of law. And now we're going to bring up the topic of dissident. If you are considered a dissident, a political dissident, then Child Protective Services has the authority to go after you. Somebody waves a proper colored flag towards Child Protective Services, and they can and they will go after you. So they're waiting. They're literally waiting for one of your neighbors to say that they heard something or they saw something, so that they have the grounds to go inside, knock on the door, if necessary, barge right in, and accuse you of being abusive towards your child or to the minor who is entrusted to your care. This happens a lot more, as I found out this past week. The Child Protective Services going after someone who could be considered maybe because they went to January 6th down at the Capitol, or for whatever reason, they could be considered for Homeland Security, they could be considered a person of interest. Child Protective Services has a track record of going after Americans who are considered a person of interest much more frequently than people, for example, who are working at the top level of a Fortune 500 or working at the top level of a large hospital system in a major city. They're almost never accused of child abuse. But I can remember one case when I was a sophomore in high school where a top official in the public eye, his son was one of my classmates, and I know very well that he was very heavy-handed in dishing out the discipline in his house. But Child Protective Services never came after him, and even today probably would not come after him. So it's this, we are a system of law, a nation based on the rule of law, but there is selective enforcement of the law. And I'm going to use that term a lot over the next couple of weeks. Selective enforcement. All right. How's my audio? Is it still crackling? All right. I'll have to go back and see. I'm not getting any feedback on the audio, so I'm assuming that things are good. All right, let's go to the next topic. There is in the United States a proper way to. Let's put this another way. Within the United States, there are boundaries between the different disciplines, right? The law enforcement officer has a specific job to do within a specific domain, a certain territory, geographic territory. For example, a sheriff. A sheriff is a sheriff of a county, and the county is delimited by county lines, and his authority is only over crimes or potential crimes committed within that geographic territory. And within that territory, he can't overstep the boundaries for medical professionals, legal professionals, and so forth. But now with the internet and the potential for a crime to be more cyber than brick and mortar, and for the files, the text files, documents that are kept, the videos, photographs that are kept on a computer, the territory of the sheriff, of other law enforcement, of medical professionals, of legal professionals is getting fuzzier and fuzzier. And as we become more cyber as a society, to the enjoyment of more than one professor at our Ivy League universities, we have a greater difficulty in deciding when something is going wrong, when a person must be called to account, and whether or not that person should go in front of a judge, in front of a jury, and be held accountable from a criminal standpoint, according to the laws of that particular geographic, state or county or whatever. The lines are getting fuzzier, and it's very hard to pick apart which set of laws that person is being held to, and the laws that govern which evidence is presentable in a court is becoming very difficult. So you have, for example, a couple going through divorce. lives on one side of one's on the Michigan side of the state line and one's on the Ohio side of the state line, and the kid is going back and forth between the homes, and something happens. There's a little bit of violence one night. The woman drives to the ex-husband's house, tries to get the kid out. Which set of laws apply? And what happens when you have cyber involved? There's messages. He was recording a phone call between her and her lawyer, but in that state, it's one party only. The legal territory is not easy to navigate. And some people are taking advantage of the fact that it is not easy to navigate. The crimes are arranged in advance, or Child Protective Services, if they want to go after your kid, they can wait until you are in a situation where the line is blurry, you're not clear about the rules, and you fall into a trap. In some cases, there's entrapment, outright entrapment, and they got you. Now they have grounds to, even though you're kind of dancing on logs floating in the river, they've got you now, and you are in some fashion or another, you've broken or potentially broken a law. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that the legal system in America is a for-profit enterprise. And I think I'm not letting any cats out of the bag here. The article we just read about the child kidnapping, the child medical kidnap, the counsel for the hospital, or in this case, for the medical professional, determined that there might be child abuse. You shook your child violently, or you did something that you hit him a little too hard and caused a bruise. The legal territory is very hard to navigate, and so we need to have very clear in each of our communities. We need to have to form a group that talks about these issues and will provide support for any parent within that group, or for, in the case of an elderly patient, for the son or daughter or the caregiver, that will provide support for the caregiver in case they are accused of abuse. And I'm thinking specifically for I think in a particular way, the case, it's located somewhere between Cleveland and Toledo, Ohio. It's a smaller city where a patient is being accused of abuse. A caregiver is being accused of abuse and is having a hell of a time getting his kid, making the counsel understand how he was not an abusive caregiver. This is going to be, these various issues come together when we're talking about a serious medical intervention that you as a caregiver might not want, but because you are being held as potentially a bad father or bad mother or a bad son or bad daughter, the hospital staff and the hospital administrators can say that you no longer have the ability to approve that medical intervention or to disapprove that intervention, let alone seek another hospital, right? this is very. Oh, we also have the issue of mental health now. If they can show that you were taking SSRIs at one point, even recently, then they can say, well, you are no longer in a medical state. You cannot approve or disapprove the intervention for your loved one because you are not all there upstairs, right? That's another area that has to be addressed. But now I'm getting towards my final point. The system that we have right now, especially with 4 very large medical systems that are spread over a wide number of states. Each one covers a territory of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 states. These hospital systems have 2 floors just filled with white shoe lawyers, with top level counsel, because they need to find a way to keep certain patients in the system. They do not want you taking your loved one to a smaller doctor, let's say your family doctor who's retired now, and he's 75, 80 years old. Lives out in the country, and he is capable of treating your elderly loved one. They don't want that. So, and I found this out the hard way, and over the past couple of weeks, the hospital has on staff a large number of lawyers, very well paid, to make sure so that they can find the case law that can keep your loved one in their hospital. Okay, why is that a big deal? If it's not obvious, we have right now several hundred cases in the court where a young man or young woman decided to undergo sex change therapy and is taking hormones, and the parents are trying to get the kid to stop taking these hormones or to not undergo the medical procedure, and they're trying to put the parent or parents in prison for obstructing justice, for child abuse, and things of that nature. It's already terribly upsetting that the people, the residents, the friends and neighbors of these parents who are trying to help their kid not get a sex change, the neighbors and friends should be helping them with everything they've got. They should be taking days off of work to help these poor parents, and they're not. And I'll explain a little bit why they're not. Well, some of them, why a few, not all of the friends and neighbors, are not taking off work to go help these parents fight the system. I was talking with an old friend. We didn't. It would be hard to say we grew up together because he's 10 years older than me, but we lived on the same street. I was his parents' paper boy when I used to deliver the plain dealer. But he did work with a relative of mine at a large hospital system in the Cleveland area. And I told him about one surgeon that grew up in Pakistan, didn't even grow up in the United States. He grew up in Pakistan. It might be very professional. He might be the best doctor in the world. He might have, he might have nerves of steel when it comes to working on a patient. But I have very grave concerns about this particular surgeon because I could not get any background data on him, except for the fact that he grew up in Pakistan. And I asked this this nurse, he was an RN for a long time with a major hospital system, and he knew the doctor that I was talking about. But he advised me, don't ask too many questions. Don't go there, because there are people who, they might not come after you, but you probably have loved ones in the Cleveland area, which I do, and they will make life difficult for them, because that surgeon is, he's got friends in high places, or in low places. Let's say that. He's got friends in low places. And that really discouraged me. I got really down when I heard that. When him telling me, don't spread that doctor's name around too much, because he has a high profile. He's well respected in the medical community, and you could cause trouble for someone you love. Let's say, just theoretically, that there's a very, very powerful man in Cleveland whom George has talked about a couple times, and he happens to have be 2 steps away, 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon from this doctor, right? Any citizen journal that starts to go after that doctor is eventually going to go up against some of the thugs of this very, very powerful individual in Cleveland that George has talked about. The powerful individual in question owns a couple of radio stations, so you can't go there with your news about the medical kidnap or whatever it is, or malpractice. And by the way, if you want to sue someone for malpractice, good luck with that. They tell me that nowadays, unless they amputate the wrong leg, you have very, very little chance of suing a doctor for medical malpractice. But close that parentheses. The powerful individual in question owns at least 2 radio stations, and probably knows somebody in a major newspaper in the Cleveland area. So getting the news out is going to be very difficult for you as a citizen journal. You're not going to have very much support from medical personnel, because those who have a job at a large hospital want to keep that job. Large hospitals do pay pretty well. The patients can be stressful. Some of the hospital staff can be stressful at times, but they do pay well. So you want to keep that job, and you're not going to speak out against this doctor because of one particular case that has gone wrong. So the question boils down to, can a group of citizens, let's say 100 citizens in between Cuyahoga County and Portage County and Geauga County, can 100 concerned citizens do anything to make that line, that fuzzy line between the legal law enforcement community and the medical community and the media less fuzzy, less entangled? Can we get back to some kind of, can the citizens do anything to lobby their respective governments for more clear laws, or to, better yet, to make the current laws on the books applicable or enforceable in an equal manner across the board? And how do we take, a lot of people have advocated for modifications to the Fourth Amendment. I don't think that the Fourth Amendment necessarily needs to be tweaked. I think that the very basic ideas behind the Fourth Amendment should be used to make the for example, HIPAA laws. The HIPAA laws should be aligned, or the HIPAA laws should be modified to be more in line with the principles of the Fourth Amendment, not with the letter of the law, but with the spirit of the law. HIPAA laws can be circumvented. You know, I've talked about this powerful man in Boston, wears a fancy watch. I heard with my own ears him say HIPAA laws can be gone around. You can get around the HIPAA laws. And I think he was talking to someone who was very powerful at CSAIL. HIPAA laws, if you're in the right club, you can get around the HIPAA laws. But you know, for the rank and file doctor or patient, you have to obey them down to the last comma and virgula, semicolon. So what I'm trying to say really is we need more courage. We need to summon the courage necessary to stop with the Facebook, stop with the Twitter, stop doing the keyboard warrioring, and go to brick and mortar meetings of like-minded individuals and show them how bad the situation is, how the pipeline works, how the lawyers are making so much money, and show them and convince them to actually take concrete, positive action to get in the face of their lawmakers. Don't wait 2 years for some magical politician to come along and fix everything. Those who are in office right now, make them do their job. Make them do their effing job. Make sure that the laws are applied equally. That just because someone has someone has attended a January 6th event, that doesn't make them more susceptible to the dirty deeds of Child Protective Services. You have to fix that. If you're listening to this broadcast, you have to fix that. You cannot wait for some magical politician to appear and fix it for you. You have to get, and this is the real point. You have to risk a little bit of your time and money, and you have to risk actual physical danger. Because of the one case I heard about up in Vermont, they have a bona fide DynCorp sheriff. You know, George has talked about the DynCorp sheriffs before, back in the pre-COVID days. This is a real DynCorp sheriff, and he really has said to this person, to this Osprey, you better watch yourself. Okay? That shouldn't be. I should never have a law enforcement official come and tell me, you better watch yourself, because because I'm against Child Protective Services, or I think that Child Protective Services could have some better people at the helm, or that there is a father was unjustly taken away from his kids, or vice versa. The kids were unjustly taken away from him because of some trumped up charge that was put on him for political purposes, to take him off the political stage. This should not happen in America. As I said before on the previous episodes, there is so much data. The people at the top love data. They can't get enough data. Do you ever wonder why at the top 20, the Ivy League universities, how come the fastest growing department is big data? It's not data about clothing or merchandising, or it's not data about new automobiles. It's health data. The fastest growing department at most universities, top tier universities, is the big data department of the computer science lab. you have to bring this point up when you go to county meetings. You know, the county is thinking of rezoning something because they want to put a new express care. You have to work in these things like World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization, soon to be World Health Authority, and the big data and the encroachment of these outside entities coming into your county and getting more and more of your friends and neighbors hooked on these drugs. I'll bring up again the case of the Stanford/Harvard, what I was going to say, the doctor who's now becoming an internet superstar because he goes all over the place with his cute poodle and his all the nice things he does for kids in the neighborhood, and telling people, oh, we have to let the Sacklers go, and we have to be a little easy on the Sacklers because their heart's in the right place. We have to stop this. The internet, the powers that be are pushing more and more people into the hospital, into the express cares for the rest of their life. They are not going to let up unless you take the risk. You assume some level of risk for your physical and financial well-being to go after these guys and make the politicians and make the bureaucrats do their job. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you very much for listening. I do. If you haven't got the email yet, you will tomorrow morning. One of our ospreys has passed away. He was at a large medical institution that I did my second broadcast on, and they let him go after 8 days, even though his vital signs were worse, even though his condition had gotten worse. They told his spouse to take him home, and 20 days later, he passed away. That's the price of being a dissident. And this, the spouse of this osprey needs some cash to pay the expenses. Going through the records, going through the bank accounts and whatnot. Some surprises came up. So I am going to send you an email describing a little bit better the situation. We're asking mainly for loans. If you can loan $100, the person in question or Research Roadshow will personally back up those loans. Please read the email and please distribute it to people. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to read and understand this particular email. So the return on the loan is considerable. I'm putting up pieces of my company, Bluebirds. Excuse me. The police siren. Another police siren is distracting me. Bluebirds Technology LLC, based in Cleveland. I'm backing. Two police cars. I can only imagine where they're headed off to. Please read the email tomorrow morning and ask questions. Please ask questions. I don't remember what it's like to not know certain things. You have to ask me questions, especially when it comes to a powerful individual whose last name begins with a K in Cleveland, Ohio. Ask me how the big K is related to the two largest hospital systems in Ohio. Ask me questions. Force me to do my job to provide you the hard data that will direct you into the library to do your hard work that you need to go with your friends and neighbors down to the local hospital, down to the county commissioner, and so forth. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. We should have Mr. David Underdown on again, and That, again, is 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Keep smiling. It drives the AI crazy.